Hi, baddies. Welcome back to another episode of Terra's Baddies Club. I am so excited. This is the fourth episode in a row. So we are consistent on our scheduling every Wednesday. And then I have a little Penny here, my little kind of purse dog she is, but she loves to run and walk as well. She has so much energy. She's my rescue Pomeranian. But we have so many great things going on in the new year. I have the documentary in the works. I have a book deal getting pitched out this week. I may have said that last week, but it's really this week. And special thank you to Kelly, my literary agency. Then Tanya's book came out this week, so that's really special. It's a different part of the Dirty John story. She is his first wife and had a completely different experience with him, other than him causing a lot of chaos in her life, which seems to happen. But check out her book, order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere where books are available. And then we also have my nonprofit getting approved this year. So excited about that. I'm trying to get money so that I can create a safe haven for domestic violence survivors to go to and escape from their abusers. So if you feel like donating, there's a link in the show notes. And then I have a great guest on today. She is just amazing. She has helped me with my love life in the past in COVID times. We are going to have on Jaydi Cuba Samuels today. Jaydi has created Match Made in Hollywood. It is a boutique matchmaking service connecting high quality, accomplished singles, particularly within the entertainment and creative industry. And she's known for discretion, intentional dating, and carefully vetting out matches. She has a podcast and she has a book coming out. So we're going to get into that in this episode. So let's get into this episode with Jaydi. Hi, Jaydi. I'm so excited to have you today. I hit my heart because you're a matchmaker and you were close to my heart at one point, and I had a great experience through you. I met a lot of lovely people, and I remember one guy in particular. Unfortunately, he didn't feel the same way about me, but that's fine.
It happens
But
to the best of us.
right. But he was really great. He worked for a great television establishment, we'll say. And I just had a great time on those dates during COVID. And well, why don't you tell the folks who don't know you a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in entertainment. I was a TV writer for, and still am, for a decade plus. And I got into matchmaking kind of as a side hustle because I just noticed there were so many people in the entertainment industry who were grounded, quality people looking for something serious and were just having trouble finding each other. And I thought, well, I could be that hub for people. I was doing it in college, just on an amateur level. And I thought, I'll just spread the word and tell people what I'm doing. And Lauren Rosenberg, who was my eventual business partner, heard about what I was doing. And it just really grew exponentially once we put the two of our heads together, and have been operating a referral only matchmaking company in Los Angeles ever since, with a focus on people in entertainment, although we have clients outside of that. I do date coaching on a national level for my company and other companies as well. And now I have my first book coming out very soon called Your Last First Date: Secrets from a Hollywood Matchmaker, through Simon & Schuster. So it's all coming together.
I love that. And truly congratulations, because the book writing process is not easy.
No, it was a true labor of love, as they say.
Yes, yes. Okay, so we met through Alexis Linkletter, who has a true crime podcast, the First Degree podcast, and a lot of you guys may know her, but she was great to introduce me to you during COVID times because she knew that I was having a hard time in my dating life, and Hinge was just not it.
Yeah, it's a lot of people think of us as a great alternative to dating apps, and It's a hot topic in our industry. Like, do we encourage clients to stay on the apps, get off the apps? I'm actually a huge advocate of having clients stay on the apps just because, as a matchmaker, of course, it's good for our business if we're the ones to introduce you to your husband or wife. But as a dating coach, I just want you to meet your person, whether it's through us or at the grocery store. I just want everyone to keep their taxi light on at all times, to be findable for people wherever you might be, even if you're out walking your dog. So, kind of like an agent is always trying to get their clients work in the industry, even if that writer has their own connections and they're booking their own shows and everything. You have that behind the scenes going on for you. We're like your love agents, where we want you to put yourself out there still, but there's going to be all these other introductions we're making for you on the side.
Yes. And I used to say that meeting people at work was the way to go. However, this day and age, I don't think it's the way to go. And so I think you're the perfect person to kind of set up that meet in a sense.
Mhm.
Because it's not really appropriate to, excuse my language, fuck your coworker.
No, it's true. I mean, it's definitely look, it still happens, right? But it, especially like post Me Too movement, it's just tricky territory. It's not what it used to be. And it's a little bit like safer, so to speak, to be introduced through a mutual. And we like to think of ourselves that way, where it's less business and more we try to create the feel of you're just meeting through a mutual friend. And a perfect example, I won't say names, but there's at the time a TV writer that was in our database who was writing for a major studio. And there was an executive at that studio. They had not crossed paths, but she was an executive who could have weighed in on his shows and things like that. And they never, even if they had met in person, neither would have asked the other out. It never would have gone anywhere because they would have wanted to maintain that professional decorum. But because we introduced them, then it was okay, and now they're married. And so it's just that one step removed makes it a little bit more palatable in terms of like if it were to go somewhere, and a bit more above board.
Yes, yes. And then I honestly, you're kind of bringing back all the reasons why I forgot that I went to you, to be honest. And so sorry
There's
if I
so
didn't
many
include
reasons.
this, right? But on the apps, I would get recognized for my name.
Mhm.
And so it was more comfortable even going to you and dating people in the industry. Honestly, all my long term relationships have been someone that's like a DP or a videographer or a PA that turned into a second cameraman, something like that. And so I think that going to you, it also made it more safe.
Yeah, I mean there are some companies. I don't know if you saw the film Materialist, where Dakota Johnson is handing out business cards in the street to good-looking bachelors. For us, it
Yes.
right. So for us, there it is a little bit safer, so to speak, because everyone is being vouched for by somebody else, whether they're in entertainment or otherwise. So obviously we've been very fortunate, knock on everything, that, we've never had a situation. To the best of our ability, we try to vet for that. That's the most important component. That I would not be able to sleep at night if I felt like my clients weren't in good hands. And so that's one pillar that we've added to our business model, just to create more of a fail-safe for that.
Yeah, it was a movie, and
Mhm.
I love Pedro Pascal, so
Right.
he's just amazing. But it was really interesting how she just went up to any man who could be, I believe, like the top like 5% or 1% or something like that.
Well, she just wanted to recruit people who are good on paper, right? So someone
Yes.
who was really tall and had a high net worth and good looking, and was not really accounting for someone's life perspective and values and sense of morality and criminal history and all the things that you would actually care about if you were going to spend the rest of your life with someone. Now, obviously, those other things are bonuses, and in fact, like, to some degree, a requirement. You have to have an attraction for the person you're going to end up with. But she was only recruiting for those qualities, and learns her lesson as a result over the course of the film.
Yes, and I love the fact that everyone's referred to you. That felt safe to me in a sense as well. And then it was really interesting because during 2020, you had to really redefine your approach with matchmaking. And how did that make that kind of like change in that moment?
Yeah, when the pandemic happened, I mean, we always, the mission was always to try to help people find love. And when the pandemic hit, that mission just sort of, it lit a fire for us because it went from people feeling lonely already to now they have literal isolation if they don't have a roommate, right? In their respective living spaces. So that loneliness, that feeling of loneliness was really compounded for people. And so we just really felt a strong sense of responsibility to try to keep people connected romantically and otherwise. Even had we don't use it anymore, but we rolled out kind of like Bumble's version, like Bumble Friend, where it was connecting people just to have great conversations and people who had things in common. So we were finding all different ways for people to connect during the pandemic. And we rolled out virtual matchmaking, which it really took off. Like we were not the only people who had that going, but I want to say we were probably one of the first to do it because we pivoted almost immediately. We saw the need and we were like, absolutely, it doesn't matter that people could be spreading a virus. Like, there's still that need for for connection. And so even if people were going to have, we had a couple that we set up that the first like 2 times they met each other, they did walks on the other sides of the street. So they met up in person with masks on, and one was walking on this side of the block and one was walking on the other. And they just had their first dates that way. And then they ended up moving in together. So it didn't end up lasting, unfortunately, but that's like an example of ways that people got creative. And even how people were courting each other changed. Like people were postmating the same meal to themselves and the person that they were going on a virtual date we set up. So they were eating the same food, drinking the same drink. The guy was still paying, which is part of our service, one of our rules, so to speak, but doing it through their computer screen. So it got really fun and creative and made us really feel like we were making a difference at a difficult time in people's lives.
I love that so much. And what were you surprised that people connected that way in that format? Like, what were you surprised that like was different other than the mask and what you just said?
I think people were open to more than they typically were, particularly on a superficial level, but I think just across the board. For example, there might be someone who wasn't previously open to a guy who was shorter, but when you're meeting on a computer screen, you're not really feeling that height difference initially. So people were forming a romantic connection. And then, they would find out someone's height, but it would matter a little bit less. By the time they met up, they already felt strongly about each other. There were, I would say, mostly because of the superficial components, some of that was removed as a barrier a little bit. I also think getting a glimpse into someone's home life, it happened a lot sooner than you normally would. So it tended to sometimes in a negative way. Like I remember some examples of people hopping on a Zoom together for a date. And then the woman afterward would be like, he was amazing, but I don't want to see him again. He had no artwork in the background of his computer screen, and would make this leap of like, oh, he must be living in like a shithole, you know? So like I started having to get guys to, whether it was in a coaching session or otherwise, I was like, you have to decorate. Like you're inviting women into your home now on these dates. It's like a whole different ball game. But then also it would speed up on the flip side. It would speed up relationships because it wasn't like you could date multiple people at once because you could potentially be exposing someone to COVID. So the second people would be like, oh, I'm interested in you, you're interested in me, let's move in together, or let's create a pod together. And so it went from like 0 to 100 a lot quicker, which in some ways was wonderful and in others backfired, but it definitely was interesting to be a fly on the wall for those connections.
It was so interesting because that wasn't my experience with moving into a pod with someone. And it's really cool to hear that those stories happen through your matchmaking service, even if they say that sometimes people are in your life for a reason, not a season.
Mm-hmm.
And so, maybe that was for them, the reason, not the season. And I had a really great time. And then now that you mentioned the guys and that they needed art on their walls, it's funny because that's something I actually didn't really notice. But looking back, the guys that I did the Zooms with, their walls were very clean and they looked like they might have lived like a serial killer, but I know they weren't a serial killer, but they were just so clean.
Uh-huh.
And you look back on my wall and it's very creative and very messy. So maybe that's why it didn't work out with that one guy.
Oh my gosh, I'm laughing so hard. I started having a coughing fit and had to mute myself. No, the background that you have is exactly the kind I would advise some people to have, where it shows a glimpse into your personality a little bit. So I think you're crushing it.
Yes, but there was one guy that did have a bicycle behind him, and that showed to me that he liked to work out. So I thought
Mhm.
that was great. But you could tell like his walls were very clean. He was just probably like an A personality, and I'm someone you have to pick up after.
But you know what? Sometimes those couples work really well together. It could drive each other crazy maybe at the beginning, but I can tell you I'm the you in my marriage, and my husband is the type A around the house where he's constantly tidying up everywhere he goes. And we rub off on each other. Not that I'm like some huge slob or anything, but he has gotten a little bit more relaxed in more of like a homey environment. And I've actually gotten a bit more type A just as a result of being around him so much. And I think having that balance is always good. If you have two really type A people, it can be a lot. And especially if you end up bringing kids into the picture at some point, like that's a very sterile environment to raise a kid around. And if you have two people who are messy, that's not good either, because you're not helping each other improve. So, I'm all for you dating a type A guy, or at least in that
Okay.
respect.
So in the semi okay with the messes. I mean, my ex, he was creative as well, and he had a lot of stuff, and he would clean up after himself. But it could have been seen messy to some women.
Right, right. I'm a fan of
But
piles, like
yes.
clean everywhere, but then there's like a chair in the bedroom that just has stuff that needs to get put away. Like I think that's a good balance you can strike with your future partner.
Yes, I like that. I like the piles as well. So, getting into setting the stage for people who may not know your work, how do you describe what you do as a matchmaker, especially for people in the entertainment industry? Because in that article, it was kind of hinting at that you did some big name celebrities. Is that hinting true ish?
You want me to confirm whether or not we work with high profile people? We can never say any names regardless of somebody's profession. But yeah, of course, there's people that we've worked with that are names that people would recognize. I would say our typical client tends to be someone who is more likely to run a major motion picture studio, and someone who's like starring in the next blockbuster. But we have a mix of both, and we treat them all the same. And obviously everybody comes with their own set of what they're looking for and what they bring to the table, irrespective of profession. But it's not a territory that we're unfamiliar with.
Okay, because it was just hinting at, and I was like, oh, that's interesting and that's cool. And I think that in my experience with you, I didn't meet like an A-list actor, but that is not probably what I was looking for.
Well, also, I try to remind people, because I have some people, Lauren and I will have people come to us and they'll mention profession in terms of either who they've dated historically or the type of person they think they're going to end up with,
Okay.
whether they're looking for like a doctor, lawyer, somebody corporate versus someone creative. We try to have them speak more to the qualities that they're looking for, because that can manifest in so many different ways that are outside of profession. Someone might come to us and say, oh, I have to, like, we have this male client who only wants to date someone in entertainment, but we want to know the reasoning behind it. Is it to raise his own profile more, or does he just value creativity in a partner and bonds over creative endeavors? In his case is the latter. And so for us, have worked with him to get him to be open to someone who is an attorney that paints on the side. For example, we don't ever want someone ruling out their husband or wife based on what they do for a living. And naturally, there's certain challenges that come with certain professions, especially if someone is in the public eye. And so when we are dealing with someone with that background, we do other types of vetting, but we try not to weight that too heavily. I don't love working with it leaves a bad taste in my mouth when even someone who's more high profile says like they only want to date someone who is like that because they understand what they're going through. It's not that we don't set up those types of couples. We absolutely would if we felt like they were truly compatible with each other. But I also could see a world, and we have set up couples where they just bring different things to the table and it's so refreshing for the other.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Well, and then it kind of leads into my next question of why has discretion and privacy always been such a core part of your approach?
I think when it comes to matchmaking, it should be regardless of the types of people you're matching. I think that you're dealing with people in their most vulnerable parts of their lives. And so for someone to have that trust in us and to feel like they could really open up to us, not feel ashamed of qualities that they're looking for in a partner or things that they bring to the table, we want to maintain that sense of privacy and confidentiality. Even in my book, I purposely go very out of the way to change key factors about people's backgrounds so no one can be identified. It's just, we wouldn't have, it's like a would you go to a therapist if that person was blabbing about, his or her patients? Probably not. So it's just something that I think should be at the core of any matchmaking or date coaching company. And so we have that at ours as well.
Yes, you truly are like a dating therapist in ways. You have to tell the person, hey, you might have this repeating factor that might be a turnoff, but you might like say that more gentler.
Right. I mean, the thing with therapy is you're going in with normal therapy, you're going in and you're giving your version of events. And hopefully, you have an amazing therapist that can piece together the other person's perspective and what the real truth is, and if they're sensing any patterns. But we have the benefit every single time we set someone up, we're hearing what their experience was like and what the other person's experience was like. And so we have that benefit of identifying patterns extremely quickly. And even if it's not a pattern, it's just we've gotten very good at figuring out what is that story they're telling, what is really the truth out there. I'm not a big believer in the idea that there's something wrong with someone if they haven't found their person yet. My husband is a perfect example of someone that was basically single for 20 years before he had a relationship with me that lasted more than 4 months. We've been married 7 years now, but I think a lot of people would have said something's wrong with him because he just like didn't find his match soon enough. He was 38 when we started dating, 40 when we got married, but he just knew what he was looking for. And if he felt like he didn't find that, he wanted to be available for the right person and not be stuck in the wrong relationship. And I think that I meet a handful of people where they just haven't found their person yet. And then there are a lot of people that, yes, there's something, even just from an intake interview, I can identify like, oh, okay, you know what, there's something about their energy or personality that if they just make some minor adjustments, they'll probably have more success in the wild, or someone that they're meeting through us. It could be, whether or not they're having trouble attracting someone for a first date, or there's something that they're doing to flub that first date that it's not yielding a lot of second dates. So we work with people on a litany of issues, but there's also, like, I would say the typical bachelor or bachelorette who we work with at our company is someone who shows up, they don't have trouble getting dates on their own, they just haven't met their person yet. However, they think they're a perfect dater because they're getting second dates, they are confident, they're able to flirt and express interest as needed. They don't have any nervous dating habits. They're showing up with their A game and they're not understanding what they're doing wrong. It's pretty soon after, in a lot of these cases, we realize they're looking in the wrong places. So it has nothing to do with them or how they're showing up in dating scenarios. They're just going on dates with the wrong people that are not well suited for them, whether it's somebody toxic or they're repeating a pattern. And so we get in there, we help them break it. We try to identify outliers. Maybe they're categorically ruling out an entire demographic of people based on their hairline or their age or whatever it is. And we're like, wait a minute. So I know you would have swiped left, to Josh so-and-so on a dating app, but we've gotten to know him and we think the two of you would just have explosive chemistry, and we think that your backgrounds are really similar and you want the same things out of life. Like, would you grab a drink with him, even though you are hoping for someone, in whatever category that you've told yourself a story that's not something that's going to work for you, when in fact, you have ruled out your future husband. And so we like to really get in the weeds with people and do that work with them.
I might need to hire you back.
You're welcome back anytime. We love you.
Thank you. I just, I did have a good relationship a few years ago, but then it ended and then he kind of went avoidant. So it didn't really go anywhere with that. And then it ended in a discard. But I've been trying to date, and he told me to date too. But I've been
not loving the sound of this guy, by the way.
Thanks. I've been trying to date, and then I tried to go for some nice guys, but then this one guy has like a big enmeshment with his mother. And he told me, I tried to go on a date with him to even see if it would go anywhere again. He's nice. He has a good, stable job. And then he told me that he hadn't been in therapy for 2 years. And about 6 months ago, he told me, because I wanted to be just friends with him to see how the friendship would go, that is it okay if we split bills, and that was something that his therapist suggested. And I tried to be like, I can understand, since we're just trying to be friends, like splitting bills, but I'd rather kind of go out to a meal with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then to go out to dinner with you, and I've offered to even go do a class with you, like a class pass. And it's just like, I keep on the apps, the men on there, they don't want to conversate, or they like get to a certain point and then they just drop off. And then you're like,
yeah, but see, it's not the men on apps specifically. The men on the apps are representative of the men that are out in the world who you're going to meet at Starbucks, right? You're encountering them on the apps. But I think that's just typical behavior in 2026, right? It's just so many people are glued to their phones and are accustomed to a different way of life and form of communication than when we were growing up. And it's a skill that a lot of people just have not really developed enough. And so, I don't know, I would say that those same guys are probably bad communicators in their day-to-day life as well, not just online.
That's true. And I sometimes forget about the app because I will get so busy with work stuff. So but then I'll go back on and I'll be like, did they message me back and ask me a question? And I'll be like, no.
I mean, can I ask how often you tend to go back and forth with someone on a dating app before you take it to the next level and meet in person?
So it's crazy because like a couple years ago, it would be right away. People would want to go on a date right away. And then I don't know why, but now that just hasn't really been a thing. And I went on a date probably like 6 months ago with someone, and it was nice. It was a good date. He paid, and he was really into like tactical guns and going to gun competitions. And for me, I don't prefer that. So I think we kind of just, had a few more texts. Like, he chatted to make sure I got home safely. And then we kind of realized like, I don't think we're for each other. And then that was like the only, and then I tried to date this other guy that I dated before, but he just keeps also getting nervous, and then he'll get super sexual, and we haven't done anything yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just like, why do I keep going back to him? It's just, I think I see the stability in it of like him having a stable job, and then him but I'm like, but we can't get anywhere with that, so it's never gonna work. And then I think he just keeps like sending me nice messages every once in a while, and then I'm like, oh, what about you again? And then I'm like, no, I just need to not.
I mean, that's the thing with intermittent reinforcement, right? Like, you get such a high off of hearing from this person or having a positive experience with someone that you instantly forgive all of the avoidance and the fact that it's not developing into anything because you're just so excited to have that connection in that moment. And so we tell ourselves stories to kind of erase the bad. But when you're spending time with this person, that's literal time that you could be spending meeting somebody new who's going to have more positive, consistent interactions with you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I kind of after this last time reminded myself of that. And then I went to, have you seen Housemaid?
Yes. Yeah. My husband and I just watched it the other night.
It's so good, but the plot twist is so triggering to me.
That makes sense.
And so I got so emotional afterwards, and I saw someone literally like collapse. Like they had to like hold on to their seat. They were walking down the stairs and they had to like hold on to a seat because they were just so triggered by what happened in the movie. And so I just realized, okay, I'm so triggered. And then it didn't help that he tried to grab my waist like 4 times where John grabbed me, and he knows that's a trigger for me. So like for me, I have to be on top of that. And then I was like, even after that, I was like, no, he makes me more triggered. And like, I'm sorry, but if you tell a guy that you've been grabbed by the waist and someone tried to kill you by grabbing you by the waist like that, and he kept doing that, and I literally elbowed
Mm-hmm.
to reinstate my boundary. And unfortunately, so I can't go back into that. And that is like part of like, the highs and the lows. But that is definitely something like that's a person that doesn't work for me, is someone that can't even recognize the trauma. But even after seeing that movie, and the person that I want to be with, I would want that comfort from them.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to lie, all I could think about is, I want my ex-boyfriend here because he just knew how to comfort me.
Yeah.
But, you can't go back to either of those, and you have to move forward. And it's like, sorry, it's just clicking for me that it just doesn't work.
Well, I'm glad you're having that
And that's
realization.
why you're a coach.
Yeah, no. Look, this is why I love doing what I do, is for these conversations. And I hope if moving forward after this episode, you just don't go back to either of them, then this was a very purposeful conversation that I'm glad we had together.
Yes. Well, Jaydi, you also, you were my dating coach at one point. So it kind of brings me back. And I created literally a list, an outline for us to do together. But I keep getting off topic because I think that dating, like you can create a list and everything, but then things just happen and it's not linear.
This is such a great metaphor for dating in general. So I love that you made that connection. So many people come to me with a checklist. I had my own when I was single. And when you meet the right person, it really gets thrown out the window. I think too many people are focused on what are the boxes that they need ticked, and they overlook amazing people if there's boxes left unchecked, when in reality I prefer working with clients to figure out the inverse of that, which is what deal breakers are they avoiding. So I always start with, what are your deal breakers? I make sure that whoever that person is for you, I'm introducing you to people that are avoiding your deal breakers, as opposed to looking at it through the lens of, oh, you want someone in finance who's 6 feet, blue eyes. I don't start from that perspective. If it turns out that they check off boxes, wonderful, the more the better. But I don't match people starting from that point.
Okay. And okay, so I did create a list at one point. However, I understood that there was certain things on my list that I was willing to negotiate. Well, and I also didn't have like 6'2" tall, like features. I didn't have features on there,
Do you want me to pull it up?
Sure.
I feel like it'll take me a hot second, but it could be fun for me to look at, like, back in 2020, what did you say you're looking for, and has that changed at all until now?
Oh my gosh. I can't believe you have that. I am so down.
I have every person that's ever been someone I've matched, even people that I haven't matched yet because I feel like I haven't met their person. There's a software app called Smart Match. They're amazing. A lot of us matchmakers use it, but it just helps us keep all our thoughts organized. Lauren and I have also made some adjustments to even the algorithm that they have to sort of reflect what our matching philosophy is. And so I can absolutely reference my notes on when we used to set you up and see if we come up with anything fun. Okay, here you
Yes.
are. You were living in Long Beach at the time. Let's see here. So a lot of this is just like your basic stats that would not change. Do you still speak sign language?
Kind of ish.
Okay. I have like your I checked off ASL and Spanish as languages that you're familiar with at least. Okay. And then I just have your educational background, the industry you work in, all the amazing work that you've done in terms of advocacy, a bit about your family background, being from Orange County. You've also lived in Colorado, Vegas, Austin. Does your mom still live in Vegas?
My mom is in Franklin, Tennessee now.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Do you still want kids?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, let's see. I don't know if you could say this on your podcast about like any recreational pastimes
Pot.
in terms.
Yes.
Yeah,
Love
so I have.
pot.
Great, so I have that still. I have some adjectives just to describe your personality, which your listeners are already really familiar with. Activities that you enjoy. I'll gloss over some of this. Dating experience, but let's see, you have a membership to a social club, 2 dogs and 2 ferrets. I don't even know if you can
No
say
ferrets. And they were stinky. I felt like that may have been something in my love life when a guy would come over and smell the ferrets. He'd be like,
I feel
I'm
like there was
good.
also like something, wasn't there something to having ferrets that you were like, I'm technically not supposed to have a ferret? Was that a thing?
Yeah, they're illegal in California.
Okay, yeah. I remembered back from talking to you. There was something there. All right, so I'm gonna skip. So that's like some background on you and obviously a lot more in depth, but let's focus on what you were looking for at the time.
Okay.
So you were open to someone up to 45, which was always a very generous age range. Do you still have a generous age range that you're open to?
My ex is probably 49 this year.
Okay, so yeah,
So
so the
yes.
answer is yes. I'm upping it in your profile. You were pretty good about height. You said 5'8" and up.
Yeah, like I've dated all over the map, but I always usually end up with taller, but it's not like a preference. I mean, like who doesn't love a tall guy with some big shoulders, but like it's not something I need, you know?
Sure. And yeah, some of these things are noted as preferences and not deal breakers. I have a little bit just in terms of their religious background. It said, I guess, someone from like more of a Christian upbringing all the way to someone spiritual. Is that still a preference for you?
Really care. I prefer spiritual, but I'm like at this point, I'm just a great communicator would be great.
Would you date someone who's agnostic or atheist?
Sure.
Okay. Buddhist?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, I love Buddhist people.
Ever dated a Jewish guy before?
100%.
All right. I'm
that was-
updating all of this.
That was the enmeshment with her mother.
There you go. Which, by the way, I have a chapter in my book all about red flags. And I do cover not enmeshment with a mom specifically, but just enmeshment with family members and why that's something to look out for. And I actually give a very specific example from a client that I was working with at the time when I wrote the book about that. But I'm glad you were able to identify that. Personality wise, you were looking at the time for, and I'm sure this stuff hasn't changed, like someone easygoing, independent, kind, a little bit nerdy, passionate about the environment, sensitive, someone who loves animals. You wanted to share your love of hiking and travel with your partner. Definitely staying away from addicts, anyone controlling, someone with anger issues. And then after a setup that I had with you, no one who likes to hunt. Although it sounds like you've since encountered that anyway. So, and then, yeah, I know you and I sidebarred a little bit before this episode, just reminiscing on the guys that we matched you with, but there were 5 during the pandemic. And so I learned a lot just from those setups too. But so that's what you were looking for at the time. And my guess is it's probably somewhat in the ballpark as well with a higher age range.
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny because just listing all the things on the list, like, I mean, my ex was very confident and very like a presence, you know? So I could do so in confident, but I feel like I need someone that's nice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Well,
don't
like,
we
and
all
he was
though?
nice. Yeah, he was nice, but like he was definitely like alpha male, you know?
Yeah, so are you okay with someone who, I don't want to say more beta, but someone who's not as like overtly masculine or dominant?
Yes, they just can't get nervous on the dates. And then, because it's funny, sometimes I like to be the person that is just like the girl in the relationship.
Mhm.
But when there is sometimes a beta, I will get super bossy, and I don't want to say controlling, because I will just get like super communicative and tell like my boundaries all the time.
I mean, it's good to communicate that regardless, but I do find that the best couples tend to be where someone is a bit more alpha than the other. And it doesn't have to be the guy
Okay.
who is. It's just a question of what role do you typically want to play and finding someone who matches that energy. Having two strong alphas can be very tough and toxic. Having two people who are too much of like a type B that no one's really taking charge, that's not ideal either. The same way with like people that keep a tidy house versus someone who has like the piles, liking to match those people. It's the same energetically. Like one of our couples that we set up actually during the pandemic that got married a couple years ago, the woman is more traditionally alpha than the guy, and they just are such a great team together. And I'm just so impressed with their dynamic and relationship and the way that they parent. And so it just really depends. Like there are women I've worked with where they think they need to ask for a guy that's really alpha and dominant because that's like what you're supposed to want as a woman. But then they find that some of the relationships where they've thrived the most and felt the most themselves are the ones where the guys are a bit more like take a back seat and allow her to shine. And so it just completely depends on what you're looking for. And I think that doing some soul searching and figuring out like what dynamic is best for you, to me, just knowing you and the guys I've matched you with and hearing you talk now about the experiences you've had since, I think someone that has a masculine energy and presence, but more of a quiet confidence than someone who's so in your face is like the sweet spot where someone you still can live in your feminine energy, but there's nothing triggering about the way they are toward you that would make for the relationship to go south.
I like that. That sounds like a great man.
I'll
Find
be
me
on
that,
the
JD.
lookout.
Find me that.
I'm on it.
When you meet people, do you ever just have someone in mind for them? You're like, oh my gosh, you would be perfect for so and so.
All the time. And that's part of the fun of having a business partner too, is I can immediately turn to her and be like, am I crazy or do you see it too? Sometimes she'll immediately think of someone and we get to have those conversations with each other. Other times it's totally out of left field. And she's like, yeah, you are insane. Like that's not a match. But yeah, no, all the time we meet people. Usually the way our process works is we'll have a client fill out an intake. Most companies, if someone has the means and they can afford your matchmaking services, they'll just take on anyone. And for us, I just found very early in the business that it was such a, not a headache and like, oh, that client's a pain, more a headache of, oh, I feel like I'm failing this person if I just took on everyone that I thought was an amazing person because I wanted to help them, but realizing I didn't have the resources to help them was damaging to us both. So what we ended up doing is we adopted a wait list. It gives an air of exclusivity, which is great for branding, but full transparency, it's not even for that reason. It's more that we don't want to activate someone's profile until we feel like, at least on paper, there's a baseline of potential matches in our internal database for them. So when someone fills out paperwork for us to apply to be a member, immediately we're like, okay, based on what we know about this person, do we have at least 3 or 4 potentials for them? Sometimes we meet them and activate a membership and those matches get thrown out the window because they're so different from what we envisioned they would be like. But we will always earnestly activate a membership if we feel like we can do right by that person. And we're always very quick to say, oh my God, you seem incredible. We get referrals all the time and we hope to activate you soon. But the truth is, there's only 1 or 2 people that we're thinking of for you. And if it turns out that's not your person, I don't know if being in our database for 6 months to a year is going to be worthwhile yet. Like we'll hit you up when we have more options. And then we also have a passive database membership where they can opt in where they're still on our radar. We're not actively matching them, but if the perfect person comes our way, we can instantly go back to them and still make that connection even if we're not actively matching them. So we try to find options for everyone. I also do that date coaching for people who we are actively matching or if they're on our wait list. So that's a way that I get to know people and connect with them and still play a meaningful role in their journey, even if I'm not directly making those matches for them.
I love this so much, and I forget how much fun it is.
It's so much fun. I mean, it's the most rewarding when we're directly responsible for a connection, but I can't even tell you. I have clients that will regularly email and say, like, I just went on a date last night with that guy that we talked about on Hinge, and I was able to up my flirt game based on the tips and tricks you gave me in our last session. And it never would have turned into a second date. But now I was able to go into it confidently and I'm going out with him again on Saturday. I don't know that all clients think to do that, but like it makes my day, week, year when people write to me and let me know how our sessions translate into real life positive experiences for them. And that's also something I wanted to be truthful about in the book. It would have felt really inauthentic. In my book, I covered my journey setting up 3 different clients and also my own journey of matching my husband, who we set up 5 times before I asked him out. But if I had had happy endings for those 3 clients where I was directly responsible, like I set up clients A, B, and C all with their husbands and wives over the course of the year I worked with them, it wouldn't be an accurate representation of what matchmaking is really like, because statistically, you can't help everyone as much as you want to, even though you want to. And so I'm not going to give any spoilers for specific endings, but everyone has their own version of what I hope is a happy ending. And in some cases, they met their person through me, but for others, it's reflective of real life, which is I have a great conversation with a client and over the course of time, like different sessions and things that they learn, they can then translate into real life to then meet their person on their own and have success there. And so I like to think that I also play a meaningful role in those journeys too.
I love that so much. And then, so other than these 3 people in the book that you go over their stories and then also talking about your husband, but what can we expect to learn from this book?
Yeah, for sure. So I want this book to feel like 10 one-on-one coaching sessions. So it's not that I don't want you paying me hundreds of dollars to, sit down and have that intimate one-on-one experience where I'm really getting to know you. That's great. Feel free to hit me up. But if you want to save a lot of money and just pay for the price of a hardcover book, you will get essentially the equivalent of 10 one-on-one coaching sessions with me, because I sneak in prescriptive elements. It's a narrative nonfiction book. So you're reading stories about these clients, but it's over the course of a year. And I am sharing with you actual conversations of our coaching sessions. So you can readers can put themselves in those clients' shoes and glean the same lessons I'm giving my clients in the book should be applicable to your dating life as well. I really cover the gamut with the 3 characters and clients that I've selected in the book. Like there's the one who is constantly choosing the wrong guy and the same type of guy over and over again and needs to kind of get out of that cycle. I have another client who was focusing on her professional career for so long that now she's at an age where it's like do or die. Am I gonna, in terms of kids, like is she gonna be a single mom by choice, or is she going to, not end up having children, or like that? There's a whole journey that we go on, and she's as I'm setting her up over the course of a year, she's writing people off very quickly because of this timeline she's given herself. And so she's not giving people a chance. And then there's a guy that I'm setting up who's a little bit older. And I don't want to give away too much about his story, but he comes off very abrasive and superficial, but there's actually a lot of depth to him and reasons for why he acts the way that he does. And so there are a lot of people who are guarded or seemingly avoidant, and there's reasons behind that and ways to kind of step away from that personality and choice. And we get into that as well. So whether you fit any of those descriptions or you've dated people who are like this, I get into different personalities of dates that they're going on as well. So anyone reading this is bound to see themselves reflected in these pages. And I guarantee you there's so many takeaways, no matter who you are or what you're bringing to the table in terms of experience and your own journey. So it's been really fun just with advanced reader copies, seeing what people's responses have been. And it's ranged from I'm married and this has gotten me feeling really nostalgic about dating. And there's lessons you have in here that are applying to my marriage and I can't wait to implement them, to a woman who actually, she posted a review on Goodreads and she had never, I want to say she's like in her late 20s or 30s and has never gone on a date. And so it's been such a huge range. And to know that people from all those different backgrounds are having positive responses to it means at least I accomplished my goal of like, I don't care if you're 20 or 80, like hopefully there's something for everyone in this book.
I love that so much. And I could definitely relate to all three stories in some aspect of it, as if, I'm the girl that sometimes chooses the wrong guy.
Right.
And then, the infertility, or not infertility, but just, trying to figure out whether to have a baby right now because I'm 34. So I got to worry about perimenopause and all of that stuff. So great times. And then also the guy that is ego driven or just, and detaching from that. I think that I have dated a lot of guys like that. And so I think that there's stories that can definitely help with any situation.
Yeah, I also really wanted to dispel certain notions because I think that when somebody breaks up with us or they ghost, we tell ourselves stories about, oh, they must be a terrible person. But then I then go on to coach those so-called terrible people and I get more insight into why they act the way that they do. And I wanted to share stories of ghosters and love bombers. And I wanted them to, be portrayed as the real people that they are. And some of them are more hopeless romantics than we are. And they're acting in a way that they think is actually helpful to the other person, or at least in the with ghosting, or even in the case of love bombing, where they really feel the way that they're expressing themselves in those moments and they just don't have the ability to censor themselves and say like, maybe I should wait to tell someone that I love them or to invite them to France or my best friend's wedding after a first date, and they lay it on really thick because they're just so excited and feeling it in the moment, not having that self-awareness of like, am I going to feel this way tomorrow? But they really feel it in the moment. And so, I just want all of these trendy names of the toxic people that we encounter. I want people to realize these are real people who are also struggling in their dating lives and are desperate to find their person as well. And they're just maybe not going about it the right way, but to have some empathy for them too. Like we're all in it together.
That is so true. That is so true. And it's actually crazy because I'm also thinking like Alexis brought a lot of interesting love into my life. She actually connected me to my last ex.
Cool.
So very thankful for Alexis for connecting me to you. And I feel like I just had so much fun chatting with you. And before we wrap up, I do a little part for the Patreon as well. Would you mind for the Patreon just maybe giving like some tips you would do for dating? But before we get there, can you let us know where we can find your book and anywhere where you're available on social media and everything?
Yeah, definitely. So anywhere you would normally purchase a book, whether it's an independent bookstore, Amazon or Barnes and Noble, wherever you typically get your books, you should be able to find a copy of Your Last First Date, Secrets from a Hollywood Matchmaker. And it comes out January 27th. It's also available as an audiobook. My social media handle across the board, I always use at Match Made in Hollywood. That's also the name of the podcast I have with my husband, who, like I said, is a former client who I used to match, and he's a reality TV producer. So we talk about all things that are the intersection of love in Hollywood. And my website with Lauren for our matchmaking business is ljmatchmaking.com. You can hit us up there for matchmaking if you're in the Los Angeles area, or date coaching internationally that you don't need a referral for. And I think that about covers it. In terms of dating tips and tricks, I feel like this is so broad. So, are you just wondering, like, is this someone with a lot of dating experience, someone who's going on a first date and hasn't in a long time? Who am I talking to?
So thank you so much for all your information. Now we're going to get into the Patreon. Thank you for listening to this episode with JD. I hope you like it. Also, if you need her coaching, get in touch with her. Also, if you want to order her book, you need some help in your love life, just order her book. It's going to help a lot. But if you like this episode, please give 5 stars. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button, leave a comment. Love to hear your feedback. But until next time, I'm Terra Newell, and thank you so much for listening to this episode.